Let me be precise about what just happened. The most powerful military empire in the history of civilization launched a war on February the 28th, 2026, killed Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on day one, bombed nuclear sites with B-2 stealth bombers in a campaign they arrogantly named Midnight Hammer, and 5 weeks later, Donald Trump is begging Iran for a deal. Brent crude is trading at $114 a barrel. American petrol has crossed $4 a gallon for the first time since 2022, and Iran, bruised, bombed, its leader dead, is still controlling the Strait of Hormuz. That is not a victory. That is a strategic catastrophe dressed up in the language of triumph. And right at the center of this unraveling, standing alone, increasingly frantic, watching his grand alliance dissolve in real time, is Benjamin Netanyahu, the man who for decades lobbied Washington to do exactly this, to strike Iran, to destroy the theocracy, to reshape the Middle East according to Israel's security doctrine. He got his war. And now Trump is leaving him behind. Let us go back to the beginning. Because to understand where we are today, we must understand the architecture of the lie on which this entire operation was constructed. After a series of failed negotiations, talks in Oman, Rome, Muscat, the Trump administration presented Iran with an ultimatum. When the 60-day deadline expired without an agreement, Israel attacked Iran, and the United States joined, igniting a full-scale military confrontation. But here is what the American public was not told with sufficient clarity. Iran had signaled, repeatedly, that a deal was within reach. As late as February 27, 2026, Oman, which was mediating negotiations, claimed a breakthrough was possible. Iran had indicated it would not stockpile uranium. And yet, Trump told reporters he was not happy with the progress, and the bombs fell the very next morning. This was not a war of necessity. This was a war of choice, a political choice. A choice made by a real estate developer from Queens who wanted to look strong, and by a prime minister from Tel Aviv who needed a war to keep himself out of a prison cell. Let's talk about that for a moment, because it matters enormously. Netanyahu, it must be remembered, is a man standing trial for alleged bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. And Trump, who had previously called Netanyahu to congratulate Joe Biden on his 2020 election win, had the audacity to call Israeli President Isaac Herzog a disgrace for not heeding his demand to pardon Netanyahu. This is the moral architecture of the alliance that launched a war on a sovereign nation. A man facing criminal trial, and a man who tells the leader of a democratic state to bend his judiciary to protect his ally. This is what passes for Western liberal order in 2026. Now, 5 weeks in, let us look at what Iran has actually done in response to being bombed into partial ruin. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps closed the Strait of Hormuz on March 2, 2026. The strait is just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Through it passes roughly 20 million barrels of oil every single day, approximately 20% of the world's entire seaborne oil trade. China receives a third of its oil through this waterway. Europe gets between 12 and 14% of its liquefied natural gas from Qatar through the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran, with drones, missiles, and sheer strategic audacity, stopped it. As of mid-March, Iran had made 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships. It struck a port in Bahrain. It hit tankers near Dubai. It expanded the conflict geographically in ways the Pentagon had not anticipated. It demonstrated, with brutal clarity, that you can destroy a country's nuclear infrastructure, you can kill its supreme leader, you can bomb its military headquarters, and that country can still reach out and throttle the global economy by choking a 21-mile-wide stretch of water. This is the decisive blow. Not a nuclear weapon, not a ballistic missile aimed at Washington. At 21 miles straight, the Iranians studied history. They understood that the most powerful weapon available to a smaller power is not symmetrical force. It is leverage, economic leverage, the capacity to make the cost of aggression unbearable for the aggressor's domestic constituency. And $4 petrol at American pumps is doing exactly that. In conversations with oil traders, executives, brokers, shippers, and advisors, one message has been repeated over and over: the world still hasn't grasped the severity of the situation. Many have drawn parallels with the 1970s oil shock, warning that a prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz would threaten an even bigger crisis. Europe risks diesel shortages in the coming weeks. Countries in Asia are already hoarding and rationing fuel. And Wall Street analysts, not Iranian propagandists, not left-wing activists, but the men and women who run the financial architecture of global capitalism, are now openly discussing the prospect of oil reaching $200 a barrel. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink warned that oil could hit $150 and trigger a global recession if Iran remains a threat to Hormuz after the war ends. So now watch what Trump does. Watch very, very carefully, because this is where the geopolitics becomes almost operatic in its cynicism. On March 23rd, Trump announced on Truth Social that the United States would postpone any and all military strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure for 5 days, citing very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. He told reporters that Iran wants to make a deal so badly. He said Iran had agreed to never have a nuclear weapon. He spoke the language of imminent triumph. There was one problem. Tehran denied any engagement with the Trump administration. Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, posted that no negotiations have been held. with the United States. He wrote that Trump's announcement was designed to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the US and Israel are trapped. Read that again. Escape the quagmire, Iran is calling it, publicly from the floor of its parliament, exactly what it is. Trump is not negotiating from strength. Trump is searching for an exit door, and the Iranian parliament is holding up a sign that says, "We can see you, Mr. President. We know what you're doing." The United States sent Iran a 15-point ceasefire plan through intermediaries. The terms included dismantlement of the uranium enrichment program, zero enrichment in the future, suspension of ballistic missile activities, and reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran rejected the terms as excessive and unreasonable. Iran said it will not allow Trump to end the war on his own timeline. Iran's own demands include the right to collect fees from ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, guarantees that strikes will stop, lifting of all sanctions, retention of its missile program, reparations from the United States, and the closure of US military bases in the region. These are not the demands of a defeated country. These are the demands of a country that believes, with considerable justification, that it is winning the political war even as it absorbs the military war. And now look at what is happening to Netanyahu. Trump met Netanyahu behind closed doors for more than 2 hours and afterwards posted on Truth Social that nothing definitive had been reached, other than that he had insisted that negotiations with Iran continue. If it can, Trump wrote about a possible deal, "I let the Prime Minister know that will be a preference. That will be a preference. Not a commitment, not a guarantee, a preference." Trump is telling Netanyahu, "I would prefer a deal. I would prefer to leave this war. And if I do, Israel, you are on your own." Behind closed doors, the picture is even more illuminating. Netanyahu told Trump it is impossible to make a good deal with Iran and claimed that even if a deal is signed, Iran will not abide by it. Trump responded, "We'll see if it's possible. Let's give it a shot." The man Netanyahu went to war with, the man who stood beside him, who lent him the B-2 bombers, who called it a historic achievement. That man is now giving it a shot on a diplomatic exit that Netanyahu considers a betrayal of the war's entire purpose. Trump has told European allies who refused to join the military operation to build up some delayed courage, go to the strait and just tack IT. He wrote, "You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore." This is Trump signaling unmistakably that he is preparing to disengage. He is offloading responsibility. He is creating a narrative in which the failure to fully resolve the Strait of Hormuz crisis is Europe's problem, not America's. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that reopening the Strait of Hormuz is not one of the core objectives Trump has set for the military campaign. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth listed the destruction of Iran's missiles, drones, and Navy as the mission's goal, but not Hormuz. They launched this war. They are now retrospectively redefining victory to exclude the thing they cannot achieve. This is not strategy. This is a confidence trick performed in plain sight. Oil executives and analysts warn that the Strait of Hormuz needs to be reopened by mid-April or oil supply disruptions will get significantly worse. The window is closing, and Trump's ability to sway the market toward lower prices is diminishing. This is Iran's masterstroke. Tehran does not need to win on the battlefield. It needs only to make the economic pain of this war reach into the pockets of American voters deeply enough, quickly enough, that Trump calculates the political cost of continuing exceeds the political cost of stopping. And the clock, as the oil executives are now publicly acknowledging, is running in Iran's favor. Now let me say something about what all of this reveals about the deeper pathology of the American empire in this particular moment in history. Analysts have observed that Trump's war aims have effectively become Israelized, borrowing Israel's strategic doctrine of periodic, destructive military campaigns without any political endgame. What some call a mowing the lawn strategy. Israel bombs its neighbors to keep them weak, not to achieve a durable peace, and repeats the exercise every few years. But here is the fundamental difference. Israel can sustain that logic indefinitely within its own political economy. America cannot. America has $4 petrol. America has supply chains dependent on oil moving through a 21-mile strait. America has midterm elections approaching. America has a president whose brand is built on economic performance, not military endurance. Iran understands this asymmetry with crystalline clarity. The supreme leader is dead. Parts of the nuclear program lie in rubble. Hezbollah is being hit in Lebanon. And yet Tehran's position in the negotiation, if we can call it that, is stronger than Washington's. Because Iran is suffering from bombs, and bombs can be survived. But Trump is suffering from economic reality, and economic reality has a way of arriving punctually, regardless of what one posts on Truth Social. What we are watching, and I say this not with satisfaction, but with the cold clarity that honesty demands, is the slow-motion strategic humiliation of the most powerful military state in human history by a country that has been sanctioning, threatening, and bombing for 4 decades. Iran has not won a war, but it has delivered something more consequential. It has demonstrated that the architecture of American coercive power has limits. Real limits. Limits that a 21-mile strait can expose. Netanyahu wanted this war for years. He lobbied for it. He dreamed of it. He got it. And now, As Israeli officials assess the terms of a potential deal, they are reportedly working frantically to ensure that any agreement aligns with Israel's core war objectives. But increasingly, the source of that deal's terms is not Jerusalem. It is Washington. And Washington, right now, is listening to its economy, not to Netanyahu. Trump remembers who stood with him in battle, they say in Tel Aviv, but Trump, more than anything, remembers who is going to vote for him or against him in November. And $4 petrol has a way of clarifying a politician's priorities very quickly. The decisive blow Iran landed was not a missile. It was a lesson in political economy. It was the reminder that in the 21st century, geography, a narrow channel of water off the southern coast of a battered Islamic Republic, can still hold the entire global order to ransom. And no amount of B-2 bombers, no amount of Truth Social posts, no amount of threats to obliterate desalination plants changes that fundamental fact. Trump is looking for an exit. Netanyahu is watching his alliance crack. And the Strait of Hormuz, still closed, still choking the world's oil supply, still controlled by a country whose leader was killed 5 weeks ago, is the most eloquent geopolitical argument of our time. The empire blinked, and the whole world saw it.